Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned lifestyle and high performance coach. Welcome to Listen Up, the podcast. On this podcast, I do what I do best, taking complicated information that is relevant to us now and breaking it down simply with actionable steps you can implement to level up your life. I also regularly interview some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on the planet who, at their worst, learned how to achieve success greater than anything they ever dreamed possible, creating everything from nothing. If you are new here, I encourage you to go back and listen from episode 1, when this podcast was previously called Leveling Up, for the full transformative experience. Before we get started on this episode, I've got to tell you about this new wine discovery that I had. I mean, who doesn't like wine? And this is my sponsor for this episode, Dry Farm Wines. Listen, I love wine, but over the years, I don't drink a lot of it. And the truth is, because I'm into health, I'm into fitness, and usually with wine, there's too much sugar. It makes me have cravings, which I eat too much food then. I don't like the way that I feel the next day. The sulfites don't do well with me. Just too much going on. But I recently learned about Dry Farm wine, which is incredible. It's organically farmed. There's no industrial additives, no sugar, zero sugar, you heard me correct, lower alcohol, lower sulfites, only wild yeast, and no irrigation is used. This wine is so good, so many to choose from, and I'm enjoying so much of this. It's paleo, it's keto friendly, and like I said, no sugar, no hangovers. Check them out. You can learn more about them at dryfarmwines.com. Today, I'm here with Alyson Charles. She's a shaman and an author. She's got a brand new book out called Animal Power. I have so many questions for her on how she got into shamanism, what it is, why she wrote the book, why she felt so called to this, how she helps people. Thank you so much for being here today, Alyson.
Of course, sister. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for uniting me with your soul fam and your beautiful community.
I can't wait to chat. So I have so many questions, and I'm going to start with some basic ones. They're not basic to you, but they're going to be, they're basic to my audience because a lot of us don't even know what this means. Like, can you start with what is shamanism? What does that even mean?
Yes, I will. I always do my best to tune in before I start to answer because it is a very large topic, because shamanism really does truly hold within it all of the ancient truths of this entire planet and of the unseen realms. So as you can see right out of the gate and that 5-second description, it holds within it infinite wisdoms and power. So to whittle it down a little bit more concisely, shamans also walk in two worlds. And those two worlds are what I just described. We are here on earth and we have physical bodies, and I'm very much, a Capricorn, and I'm organized and I tend to earthly tasks, but I am just as equally tapped into and connected into the other worlds, the unseen realms. And so just as much as I can see my matcha in my cup sitting here, I can close my eyes and in less than 1 second, I can tune into energies and auras and people's souls and ascended masters and power animal guides and things like that. So while every single shaman is encoded a bit differently, and we all have unique ways in which our shamanic practices are to be expressed, at the core of it, we're all here to do the best we can to be embodied with unconditional love and compassion and unity and non-judgment and enhanced consciousness energy so that we can hold that space for others to do the same.
Wow. Okay. So that alone brought up so many questions. So I'm just going to start diving right in. So for instance, what you just shared, what you embody and what you empower others with, talk about timely with what's happened this last year.
I know. And it's, I'm trying to see which download wants to be expressed because like you said, so much enters in just around that one topic. Yes. The last couple of years, especially, there's just been a major shadow reveal and shadow extraction for the entire planet and for really all living beings that inhabit the world. There's been major restructuring and revealing and healing and transcendence. And anytime these major shadow energies come up, and what I mean by that is there are aspects of earth and also within ourselves that we humans tend to want to push back, deny exist, because they might be behaviors or patterns about ourselves that we're not the most proud of. So a shadow aspect could be that for some reason, when you're in romantic relationships, there's this very dysfunctional piece that comes up, and all of a sudden you tend to find that the anger stored inside of you gets expressed when you're in a romantic partnership for some reason. That's just one example, but they tend to be behaviors within ourselves that we hold some shame and embarrassment around. And because we are embarrassed or shameful of them, it's not the most comfortable to bring those aspects of ourselves to the forefront to really talk to, get to know, heal, and face and transcend, because it seems easier to keep them suppressed or to keep them in denial mode. But the key within connecting to our own whole divine power, and also when it comes to planetary healing, is to allow these things that have been suppressed, all of these pain body aspects that have been stuffed down, allow them to come to the surface, because it's only when we face these elements that we can truly then understand them more. And especially with humans, oftentimes our shadow aspects are they think they're behaviors that are protecting us. But if you ask them questions more and become less fearful of them, that's when they get more fully integrated. And it's when we are integrated within ourselves in light and shadow, that's when we can unconditionally love ourselves. And from that place is the only place that we can unconditionally love all of Earth. And so, yes, lately, I'm circling back to that specific question you asked. It has felt for the last couple of years just understandably very chaotic and confusing and overwhelming, and it can bring up a lot of anxiety. But there's two ways we can go in all of this. One is to try to distract and busy ourselves and act like there's nothing to look at and nothing to heal. Or the other one is
the
to
head in the sand
in.
method, the head in the sand, right?
Right. And what happens when you go into that method?
Yeah, it's you bury it and it's going to pop out worse.
Yes, exactly. And so this is really is scary as a time as this might seem. It's really this treasure chest of an opportunity to go inward deeper than ever before, to sit with ourselves and not try to do the distraction mode, and really uncork all of the healing within ourselves, because then can hold the proper energetic space and container for hopefully the earth to do the healing that it needs to do as well.
So it's interesting. You just said there's two things that people are doing right now. They're either doing the head in the sand method, which I'm guilty of it many times because I'm like, it's just too much. I just don't want to look. Or you can totally go inward and do the work, which I'm going to ask you about in a minute. I have so many more questions. But then I also see a third thing that's happening. And this is what you really see online. It's people just attacking each other. So they're not dealing with their own internal triggers and thoughts, but they attack the other for not believing what they do.
That's a part of the distraction mode from Avenue 1. That's the projection method. And that's another form of putting your head in the sand and not facing your own stuff.
I would have not thought of that way. So somebody that's absorbed in the news attacking others, that's also a distraction method.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, and I'll give you a very clear example of how this expressed in my own life pre-spiritual awakening and divine intervention for me. So I was in a relationship many years ago that lasted almost 20 years. And in that relationship, it was filled with a ton of suffering, a ton of dysfunction, toxicity. I was in denial and illusion. So was my previous partner. And within that, I became very fixated on all of his quote unquote issues and all of his quote unquote problems. And by me becoming the rescuer and trying to tend to him and fix all of his issues and projecting all of my energy and focus outward away from myself and onto this other person, that gave me a form of escape from going within and facing my own wounds and traumas and things that I needed to face about myself. And so you're seeing that in a different form right now. And that's really oftentimes too the root of cancel culture too. It's people that don't that would rather not sit with themselves and do the deepest, most painful, excruciating healing work and shadow work within themselves. It's much easier to look outward and point the finger and tell everyone else what's wrong with them.
This is so powerful. Gosh, I had no idea we were going in this direction, but it's giving me a lot of clarity. I would have not put those together. I thought putting your head in the sand was very different than someone that's like diving and looking at the material. But now I'm realizing I'm guilty. I've toggled in between both those things in there. So wild. So this brings me to, before I get into so many of the hows, I'm assuming this is how you got into what you do because of your experience. How did you get to that realization that, wow, I've got to do this internal work. I've got to figure this out. And now not only do I figure it out for myself, I want to help others with this.
Yeah, it was that one specific moment in time I briefly referenced. It was, I had a simultaneous divine intervention, spiritual awakening moment. So the clearest, most concise way I can explain this is because of that almost 2-decade long relationship cycle that was in my past. And we just kept going around, in those cycles of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again for 16 and a half years, expecting a different result somehow. And what happened was the anguish, emotional pain, suffering, everything only continued to rise and expand and get bigger and bigger because we were denying the things we really needed to look at. So because of all of that denial for so long, my spiritual guides in the unseen realms, it finally took them to blow the whistle one day and say, hey, she's not listening to her body intelligence. My body was trying to tell me I was off track. I had severe autoimmune disorders. I was on anti-anxiety medication and having panic attacks. And just alone the emotional confusion and pain I was feeling from the toxicity of the relationship, but I was ignoring all of those signs.
Okay. You're speaking to me right now. I also have an autoimmune. So keep going here. Wow. Listening.
Well, and that's what's intriguing is we have all of these highest intelligences and wisdoms that try to come in on a mind, body, spirit, soul level to get our attention, that we are not completely dialed into the fullest expression of our true powers and gifts. And so if we're off kilter and not in full alignment of our true soul's calling in any way, somehow one of these intelligent systems tries to come in to give us signs so that we don't get pushed into a corner that requires a divine intervention. And so I teach that a lot because I'm like, man, in hindsight, if I looked back and if I had really heeded the more mild signs and calls, it wouldn't have come to that drop to my knee moment. But for me, I, pushed it for almost 20 years. So one day there's a whole story behind it, which I don't know that we have time to get into, but my ex and I were about to venture out publicly as a couple yet again, round number, 100 at this point. And as I was walking back through my bedroom to finish getting ready before we walked out the door, I became clairaudient for the first time. So that is when you can hear spirit, hear guides in the unseen realm speak to you. And I received a very clear communication, which led me to seconds later discovering the truth about the relationship, which involved me confronting my greatest fears around some incredibly dark addiction issues that my ex was suffering from, specifically sex addiction and a lot of deep betrayal. And those were elements of the relationship the entire time that I was too scared to face or truly acknowledge. And I knew they were going on, but I was too scared to look. And finally, I was entering the cave that I most feared to enter, but that held the treasure that I was seeking. And so in that very cataclysmic moment, my veil that had been over my third eye lifted and my egoic shell got obliterated. And I was finally connected to the energies of truth. And while it dropped me to my knees and it was the scariest moment of my life, it was simultaneously the most miraculous because I was finally beginning that process of being liberated and healing myself. So I will wrap this bit of it up by saying, you know, I did confront him. He could feel the energy shifting. I didn't speak, but he could feel the shift. So he came into the other room. That's when I was confronting him about all these realizations. And from then, asked him to, leave and never come back. And I went to where I came from in Indiana to spend time at my grandmother's house. And it was over the next week that all of my other spiritual gifts started to come online, open up, get activated. And they showed me, and by they, I mean Source, Great Spirit, my guides showed me our entire path and truth. And from all of those additional, very rude, but miraculous awakening moments, I realized I was not who I thought I was. That he was not who I thought he was. And I was like, wow, it's now up to me. And I have a huge responsibility to do a lot of healing. So I surrendered and finally said, I clearly don't know what I'm doing. I am not the well person that I thought I was. Show me the way. And from that moment, I have truly lived by the divine instructions from my helpers, from Great Mother Earth, from Great Spirit. And in heeding their directives for me, that and healing myself through the directives, that is what opened up my true soul calling inside of me of being a shaman. I incarnated with that already encoded, but it couldn't be expressed because I was living in denial.
Alyson, were you, all these words you're using and all this enlightenment that you had before you had that spiritual awakening that you're talking about, which I'm going to go a little bit deeper into in a minute. Were you intrigued by these things? Were you intrigued by shamanism? Were you intrigued by third eye? Were you intrigued by Source? Or was this all brand new to you?
No, I was definitely intrigued by it. And I'm very clear that it was the last little remaining sliver of my soul that I hadn't completely shoved down and suppressed. That last little soul sliver was the one that would guide me to my entire life, even since I was a young child, only read self-help books on metaphysics, the healing power of colors, palmistry, how to do palm readings, numerology, all of those topics. I used to take online psychic courses. So yes, that one true thread of me would express in those types of readings and studies, and that would bring me like the most inspired feeling. But again, one example in that previous relationship, when he found out I was doing online psychic courses and getting new angel card decks and tarot decks and things like that, he expressed how much he didn't like it and how, it turned him off. And because I was codependent, once again, another example, I shut down what I felt truly inspired and passionate about to appease the codependency and appease him.
And I think a lot of people do that. I'm curious. So many times I've interviewed people on this podcast where they come to a point of, they might call it something different, but it's essentially a spiritual awakening. But it's interesting what people pull from that. I'll either have them say, I had this spiritual awakening and I now am a follower of Jesus. I'm Christian. Religion is my answer. Or I'll have, I came to this spiritual awakening and the universe and Source. It's a very different language, but I wonder if it's really the same thing. I'm asking my own question in my mind as I go on seek, and I personally am reading the Bible right now. I have been through a whole bunch of personal development. I've done plant medicine. I've done a lot. So it's a genuine question that I have that I'm sure other listeners have too. I mean, is there a difference? Do you consider it one of the same? I'm curious. I know you said you don't have a huge religion background.
Yeah. Growing up, I actually was a very hardcore distance runner and a couple-time national champion at distance running. So my entire childhood and previous life was kind of only athletics. And so I didn't attend church much. That wasn't really a part of my journey. But, what I can say are two things. It's fascinating to me because even, this past weekend, my fiance and I gave a talk at a conference called Modern Nirvana, and Deepak Chopra was the speaker right before us. And he's just one example, but this spans into a lot of different forms of mysticism and spiritual teachings throughout the years where I have become friends with other colleagues who are just working in a bit of a different sector. But in essence, it really does truly feel a lot, oftentimes like the same teachings and the same foundations and the same true themes emerge, whether you're a teacher of Ayurveda or shamanism. There's a lot of the same, or even acupuncture, things like that. But with one specific religion and shamanic thread that has come up a lot is the theme around Jesus. And I've always found it really fascinating because I don't have a relationship with Jesus from a religious context, and I don't know him from teachings from the Bible, but I know him because he revealed to me as my main love and light guide after I had my awakening. And so I commune and speak with Jesus every day. And, if I ever feel I need clarity outside of my own wisdom, I go on a shamanic journey and call Jesus forward and we have a whole conversation. But I know him as ascended master Jesus versus however somebody else might know him from the Bible.
So intriguing. One of my friends described it to me, one of my good friends who is a Christian, and I was telling her I was reading the Bible, but I had some different opinions than my husband, for instance. And she described it, this is going to really dummy it down here, but she said it's kind of like fitness. There's not just one way to get there. Some people spin, some people go to the gym, some people walk. There's not one way to get there. So that really stuck with me and made me feel more welcomed on my journey, if that makes sense, that
Totally.
there doesn't have to only be one way. It's whatever way works for you.
And I think that that's really a beautiful way of expressing it. I don't know why it makes me kind of smile and laugh. It's like, I think it's because oftentimes the most profound spiritual teachings and truths, they're just so simple, and sometimes people want to hear, these very complex esoteric things, and sometimes during interviews when someone wants a tip, it's the most like rudimentary simple thing that comes out, and I'm like, but that's the most powerful. So I laugh about that. But yeah, it's the same thing. I also explain, as I was sharing, every shaman expresses differently and uniquely, and every shaman is different. And for me, one of the reasons that it's divinely designed that way, it's so that if someone is feeling a soul calling or a resonance with shamanism and they want to lean in to the shamanic healing arts, whether it's to heal themselves or to see if that's a path meant for them, that's one of the reasons every shaman is different, so that you can find a shaman that resonates with you. If there was only one kind of shaman that only lived in one place, that might feel quite limiting to people, that might feel intimidated to go to that particular location or to learn from that particular tradition. But shamanism is a planetary practice that's pretty much on every single continent. So there's a lot to lean into.
I would ask about plant medicine and shamanism. Do they always go together? Can you do one without the other? Like, any thoughts on that? I had done an episode on that before. So
yeah, it's one of my favorite things to talk about, and they do not automatically equate. And that's one of the main things that I'm here to talk about and to share about and teach about, is that I had my awakening and aligned and clicked into the truth of the shaman within me, and was out doing my shamanic work in the way that I'm designed to for many, many, many years before any plant medicines called to me at all. And to be honest, I didn't know if they ever would, and I was fine with that. And another little interesting side note that I actually had to do some work around when I was unexpectedly by divine thrust into a plant medicine ceremony unexpectedly, when I was there and being told that I could remain and partake in the ceremony. I thought, wow, I really had to do a bit of work around the piece that I had grown to like, that I was a shaman who had never done plant medicine, because it helps people expand their minds a bit, because there is a bit of that misconception that if you're a shaman, that means that you facilitate or administer plant medicine ceremonies, and those things do not always go together. The other interesting piece that I will share is that once a few of these sacred plant medicines began to call to me, because I truly live by the calls of divine, I did honor those true calls and say yes to meeting these different highest intelligence spirits that go with these medicines and communing with them and getting to know them and revere them. And what's been interesting is once I got done with my book recently, I thought, wow, I've been writing for 4 years, because I wrote Animal Power Book and right after Animal Power Deck, which isn't even out. The deck is not even out yet. And after almost 4 years of writing, I thought, who am I now? And how is my shamanism supposed to start to express? Because it's always evolving. And once I asked that question, all of the invitations that seem to be coming in lately are for me to give these headlining talks at all of these psychedelic summits. And it's very fascinating. At first I was so confused. I thought, but I'm not even, a quote unquote plant medicine shaman. But what I'm starting to understand by these invitations coming in and me knowing that I'm to lean in and say yes and answer the call to the invitations, I thought my voice is needed, because I do feel really, really happy and very aligned with integrity for the way in which I have walked my shamanic path and honored it, and the way that I speak about the sacredness and waiting for the call and doing proper surrender and integration. There are things that I feel very passionate about speaking on when it comes to plant medicines that maybe has been left out in the space a bit.
So here's my take on it, in my dummied down way, of course. Because I have had experience with plant medicine. Went through my own journey with it. And for me personally, I'm probably complete with it. But it was amazing for me, because someone like me who is very hard to crack the shell, it's very hard to get past the ego, to get my head out of the sand, to not get defensive, to let all that go. To me, it was a shortcut.
Yeah.
It was a way to open those doors and get me into that space that I only dreamt of going.
Yes.
So for instance, I used to do, I would try to meditate. I would try to get a massage. I would try to go to yoga class, and my ADHD brain was all over the place, bored, couldn't let go. But doing that brought me to the place of being able to know what that's supposed to feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can get there myself now.
Yes. Yes, bingo. I'm so glad that you're so honest and vulnerable in your shares. It's such powerful medicine. So a couple of things were coming in. One, I love that you seem to have this clarity that at this juncture, and you also seem open that if something else were to reveal otherwise, like if a different medicine were to really clearly call to you in 5 years, I feel like you would be open to that. But right now you feel complete. And I love that, because that is another really important thing. And of course, I'm not generalizing, and I'm not saying everyone falls into this, but I have seen, because I've been doing this work for many lifetimes and many years this lifetime, some people can get really wrapped up in the energy of having those experiences, sitting in that type of ceremony, or even perhaps being around or with a certain facilitator that administers the medicine. And if you are not super, super consciously aware and conscious and doing regular integrity checks and checking in with yourself around, is this really necessary, or am I just on autopilot? That's where immersing in these plant medicine ceremonies can get rather treacherous, can lead to various traumas coming in, and can bring more problems than what you want if you're not tuning in and saying, you know what, like, I think I'm ready for a pause, or I think I'm actually complete. So I'm so glad you said that. And then let me see if I can find, in your share, there was another cool piece that came in, but I might have lost that other one. I think it went into the ethers.
Okay. So talk to me about animal power. What did that come from? What is that about? And how can we use that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's of course another favorite topic. I wrote a book on it. So, and I got to hold it for the first time a few days ago, and I'm just so proud of it. So basically, after I had my divine intervention spiritual awakening, a couple of the first instructions that I was given from Source and Great Mother Earth for my own healing were, they led me to other shamans. And one of these shamans happens to be my aunt. And in a soul retrieval journey that she facilitated for me and my healing at the time, my power animal allies began to present. My core power animal is the black jaguar, and we all have a core power animal that's assigned to us since birth and is with us by our side, empowering us, giving us love, energetic medicine our entire lives. Then the other cool thing is, depending upon what we're experiencing in life, what our soul needs for its next level of evolution, depending upon what we're having happen in our lives, different animals come in to support us because every single animal has different healing medicine and attributes. So I developed my very close connection with the power animal realm right out of the gate after my awakening. The bear came in to help me learn how to surrender and let go into truth and be held by the support in the unseen realms. The deer helped me actually align with my current partner now. And all of these years, it taught me to keep my heart open and to not shut it down and to walk the path of the heart. And then the frog came in because I had major emotional waters and healing and clearing I needed to do. And frog also teaches to take those leaps of faith forward because it only jumps forward. So those are 4 examples of what came in right away. But the beautiful thing that happened was the relationship between the power animal world and myself only got stronger, more and more expanded, and more powerful with every day after year and year and year going by, to the point where I was being asked, to go to huge events with 15,000 people and do live power animal readings on stage. And that obviously requires complete trust, because if you're on stage and someone wants to come up for a reading and you're standing in front of 10,000, 15,000 people, you have to know that your friends in the unseen realms, the animals, are going to show up the second that you need them to. And they also learn to trust me to be an integrity-filled voice for them. So I share all of that backstory because it's that journey of more than a decade that led to Animal Power book being born. Because the funny story with this that I love to share is I had finally, after years of literary agent meetings and publisher meetings, I couldn't get clear on the book. What am I writing about? Finally got the right agents, started to write a book on surrender, another one of my favorite topics, flew to Bali to write the book. And when I landed in Bali, the animals came to me and they were like, no, shelve that book. That's not the book. We want you to write a modern day guidebook with us. Thankfully, my team was on board. And then, after 4 years of writing, Animal Power book was born, but it features 100 animals. It's 100 animals to energize your life and awaken your soul. And there's beautiful embodied artwork with every single one of those 100 animals done by an illustrator in Brazil, William Santiago. And it is a powerful, beautiful medicine book.
Okay. So question about that, because some people listening are like, what is going on right now? They've never heard this, or like, what do you mean? These animals, and break it down just like super basic for anyone that this is so new to them. Does everybody have this animal? Like, I want to understand this a little bit more.
Yes. So everyone, and that's the thing, there are a lot of people incarnated on earth that will go their whole lives and never know that their power animal walked with them and was with them their whole lives. They've never got into a conscious awareness of that relationship. And that's fine.
That's me right now. I didn't know I had a power animal.
Great. So, yes, you do. Okay. Yeah, this is very exciting. So yes, you absolutely have one that's sitting right beside you right now.
What is it? Can you see it?
I can tune in. I'll do that in a minute. Okay. Yeah, I can do that for you. And then the other one cool example that might bring it to the first step level is, let's say over the course of a week, all of a sudden, you just keep seeing ladybugs everywhere. You hear people talking about it. You turn on the TV, there's a commercial about it, and you're just like, what the heck is going on? That's one example of how animals try to get our attention, is that they present in overpowering or unique ways. But then it's up to us to be consciously awake enough to take note that, one, they're showing up for us. And then the second step is to go to a guidebook like Animal Power, open to the ladybug page, which, hey, why don't we do that right now? I have it sitting here. And then when you open up, you can read all of the different energy messages, because in the book, every animal has, I know that you might not show this
I
video,
can see. Yeah.
just so you see. So there's keyword healing attributes for the ladybug. So you open to the book and you're like, okay, why is ladybug showing up? It means it represents releasing worry. It represents divine protection and blessings. It represents higher consciousness. So then just from the keyword page alone, you're like, holy shit, I have been really consumed with worry lately. Okay, so out of the keywords you tune in, what is the main message? And then you go to this more in-depth information, and there's even a power practice, which is a ritual or a meditation or ceremony that I bring in for every animal. If you want to lean into developing your relationship with an animal and hear further messages that it has for you, you can do the power practice. So it's really a powerful reference book to help you to learn what different animals mean, so that when they keep showing up for you, you're like, oh, okay, I need to pivot. Because sometimes, I mean, there's a lot going on in the world. We're very complex human beings. And that's why sometimes it takes helpers and allies in spiritual form to help get us back on track again.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if you are seeing an animal a lot, or you're thinking about one, or you've gravitated towards one, any sign that like something is coming up for you a lot.
One comes to you in your dream, you know what I mean? While you're sleeping.
Yeah. There could be telling you, it could be a sign. It could be something to look at. So the way that we would people look at horoscopes, or they look at something else.
Yes,
it's a similar concept.
Bingo.
I love it. Okay. So I have to know what my animal is now.
Okay. So I did bring my rattle over. I wondered if something like this.
Okay.
So here's the thing. I prefer, and this is where my responsibility piece as a shaman comes in. My preferred way for someone to meet their core power animal, the animal that's with them since birth, is to do a true guided shamanic journey.
Okay.
Because it's such a sacred, reverent experience. When you do it in a journey format and you're being guided, you yourself have the opportunity to have the animal come to you, to ask it questions, to receive medicine. It's a very powerful, life-changing experience. So for these purposes, which I do have a video a guided shamanic journey video that takes people on that particular path. For this, I'm going to call forward the power animal who most wants to support you right now.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm excited.
With your permission and your invitation, I'm just going to take a moment here to, every morning at my altar, I connect into Great Mother Earth with my root cord, tune into the wisdom and truth and light and love that lives in my heart, and go directly up to Great Spirit. So I'm just re-solidifying that vertical line to those connection places now. And with Natalie's permission, I am calling forward the reverent, sacred power animal who most wants to empower her life at this time. Okay. So a giraffe revealed. So oftentimes, just like that, right away, within 1 or 2 seconds, that animal who wants to come in to be your ally will come in. Now I just need a moment to see if it has a particular message for you, what it wants to say. 1 second. Okay. So, first of all, the giraffe really honored you, because its first message was, think about the giraffe and its neck. It is a creature that's not afraid to stick its neck out, to put its neck out and put it on the line. And so that was the first message. And then it led into honoring you. It's like, it didn't want you to think by it showing up that it's saying that you've never done that. It's like, we know you've put your neck out there. We know that you are expressive and you have a lot of bold energy. We're honoring that and recognizing that. However, there's even so much more of you that is yearning to be expressed and shared. And there's an even greater boldness and even, a more powerful connection into the spiritual world and realms that wants to get dialed into you. So it just keeps showing me the neck part, tuning in, connecting into the spiritual energies and blessings that want to make their way to you to amplify your truth even more. And that boldness of putting yourself out there, it's urging, because you do have such a pure and powerful soul and spirit. That kind of medicine that you innately represent and embody, it's needed obviously more and more.
I
and more.
love this. And my two favorite animals, which you didn't even know, are giraffe and elephants.
Had no idea.
Always been those are when I was a little girl, my room was decorated with giraffes and elephants.
Wow.
Yeah, I've always loved both those. I've always been attracted to both of those.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I have, look, right here is the giraffe. You see its neck with all the color, all of that vibrancy expressing it. Oh my gosh. And the first keyword, guess what it is? It's what we talked about before you press record, clairvoyance.
Wow. That's why. Okay. So everyone needs to go get animal power, because this is cool. So this will explain when you're thinking about an animal or you're seeing an animal, or especially if you're on a search. And I know many of my listeners are on a search. That's one of the reasons they tune into podcasts like this, is they're trying to find their higher self and figure out life here and learning different aspects. This is really cool, Alyson. So first of all, how can people buy your book? Can they buy it? Is it out yet? Can we get it anywhere?
You can get it anywhere books are sold, but I do most recommend, I mean, of course, yes, if you like Amazon, go there. If you like independent bookstores, go there. I do have links to all of those options on my landing page on my website, which is AlysonCharles.com. And I spell Alyson, Alyson. So AlysonCharles.com/animal power. And I recommend going there because you have the options for the different stores, but it's also where that form is. If you want to get the free video guided shamanic journey to meet your own power animal,
amazing.
The ability to access that is there.
Which we all want to get. So that's, we're going to put that, and I'll put that in the show notes too. Where else can people find you if they want to learn more? Obviously your website, your book. Where are you most present on social media?
The other two biggest places that I express are Instagram at I am Alyson Charles. And then my podcast is called Ceremony Circle Podcast.
So good. And she recently got engaged. Congratulations.
Yes.
So lots of big news for you, engagement and new book. So
lots of birthings.
Yes. Thank you so much, Alyson. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen in as my guest today. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with friends and on social media. I don't advertise this show, so I rely on word of mouth and reviews to get it out in the world. The biggest thank you that you can give me is leaving me a review, and a nice one, I hope, by the way. This is how others find these episodes. If you do leave me a review, be sure to message me at support@nataliejillfitness.com with a screenshot of your review, because I would love to send you a free digital download of my DSR journal as a thank you. And please don't forget to connect with me on social media at Natalie Jill Fit on Instagram and Facebook.